Hey everyone, it's great to see you again. If you're new here, my name is Justin Lee and I'm a third-year DPT student at Azusa Pacific University in Southern California. Here you'll find videos on fitness, physical therapy, and lifestyle that helps inspire self-change. This channel is all about lifting others and lifting weights. So let's lift for change, people. If this resonates with you, feel free to subscribe. Alright, so in this video, I actually get interviewed by Genaro, aka G. Funny story, he slid in my DMs and was like, hey, can I take you out for some coffee? I see that you're doing a lot of pre-PT stuff, DPT stuff, and really great, awesome content, and I would really love to pick your brain about more in-depth questions and things like that. So I said, well, I'm actually starting a YouTube channel and really being committed towards this, and I think it would be a great opportunity because you're a pre-PT student and my target audience are pre-PT students and people who are into fitness, and I think it would be a great opportunity for us to all learn together, and for the questions that Genaro or G may ask, you may also enjoy and you may also resonate too. So I hope you guys gain some knowledge and I hope it inspires something inside you, and if it does, please feel free to leave some feedback. This video is a little bit long. The interview went a little long, but you know, you just can't stop greatness, you know? So I'm gonna be posting in the description on like the questions and like the timestamp and things like that. So if you kind of get bored or whatnot, feel free to kind of jump ahead. But here it is. Alright, what's going on everyone? Here we are at APU and I have my buddy Genaro, aka G, and he'll introduce himself here in a little bit.
Thank you, man. Thank you again for sitting down with me. I appreciate it a lot. You know, a lot of things we learned is, one of the most important things is time, how important that is. So I had to offer something when I slid in. I was you know, a little treat, at the end.
All right, I could do coffee.
But similar to you, I went to APU. I did my undergrad in AES, Applied Exercise Science, and that's where I kind of got the foundation. Played football here, so you see people get injured, and that sparks a curiosity too for just the whole lifting and exercise field. Yeah. And I play a little bit of rugby here too, so that's part of my experience here as a whole.
Okay. And then when did you graduate?
I graduated in 2016.
Okay.
So.
And then you were an applied exercise science major.
Yeah.
That was my major too. So you know, we're on the same boat. APU has AES, they call it, but I think they changed it over to.
Yeah, I made the transition. Yeah.
They
transitioned it, I guess, to match everybody, all the other universities or something like that. But yeah, really, really informative field. Had some really good professors that kind of let you talk and think through whatever you're curious about. I was really blessed with that opportunity. So. Doug Crowell, shout out.
There you go.
But yeah, you know, that's how it starts.
Cool. All right, so let's talk a little bit about I know you talked about your journey, but tell me about what sparked your interest in PT, why all of a sudden the change and shift of direction, or where were you going before? What did you want to do with your major, and then why PT now?
Well, my current field is public safety at the university, so I work over at USC, and the thing is, so if we're gonna go all the way back, I was a little chubby kid. Okay. And I saw one of my action toys, you know, like small soldiers.
You guys send me a video or picture
of
yourself.
Yeah, so I will. I would definitely, and I just saw it, I was like, this looks really cool, you know. I didn't like being the slowest cousin or the slowest friend, and no one picked me in sports, and you know, so I was like, I want to look like my toys. So and then eventually, you know, I got into to sports at like 13 years old. I started playing everything: football, basketball, volleyball, whatever, all that stuff. And then I made it my goal to play in college, and you know, I got accepted to APU. I walked on to APU, so that's how that started. And then, you know, you start to see people get injured, and you know, watching NFL Network, and you know, I just remember seeing athletes. They would say, you know, injuries are part of the game, and so it's always in the back of your head, and you're like, okay, but not me. Yeah. You know, that's how I thought. It was like, oh, that's not gonna happen to me. Yeah. You know, I'll be bigger and stronger. So, and eventually after you know, my major and everything, I started transitioning into powerlifting. My brother was into powerlifting at a young age, and I I said, okay, well, let me try this, let me see if I can be strong. So, and that's where I started to, I've never experienced a major injury, like a break or a fracture or any kind of ligament damage, but as far as like little tendinitis, and you understand, how important those things are. And then I started to realize, well, what about people who don't necessarily have that movement, or who don't strength train,
right,
or who can't, for whatever reason. There's the human body has so many different reasons why it might not be able to.
Yeah.
And that's where it gets really curious, and you're like, okay, well, that really affects your quality of life. And that's the biggest thing I started hearing is if I can't move on my own, man, that's really tough. And so the way I look at, physical therapy and recovering overall is like, I want to help people I see it as like the very foundation of strength for anything,
Right.
just enough ability to move around freely, and then you can move up.
Right.
And so, it just got fascinating where you're like, oh, my bicep hurts. Well, let me do a few curls. Oh, now there's blood in there. It's something that simple, but you wouldn't, and that's just prehab for most people. But I think if we strip it down even further, and it gets really intricate and really detailed. So
it does.
That's kind of how my mind started getting to all that.
Nice. Okay, cool. Yeah, in a similar fashion, I used to exercise myself as well. And, my whole life, like since I was 13 years old, so over 10 years of experience. And, I too would feel some aches and pains and some injuries. And it's like, well, what do I do with this? And physical therapy is kind of this like weird, like, what is physical therapy? Like, even now, like, I mean, it's definitely gotten a lot better, but it's like, well, like, what exactly does it do, and what's the difference between physical therapy or occupational therapy or chiropractic, and why physical therapy? Like, what is all that? And so, I just chose physical therapy just because, like, I was like, all right, well, this is a doctorate field. I could go into this, and it's growing, I guess. And then, as I got into the program and started to learn more about it, that's when I really understood, just like you, like, wow, this is a lot more intricate than I thought. And it's not just about like, oh, put some blood in there. It's like, wow, like, what's the mechanism? Like, what are the mechanics that are going on? And, all the crazy physiological stuff. So, I definitely resonate with that. And, that's super cool.
Yeah.
So I know you wanted to ask me some questions about like some things. So I'll let you take the lead on like asking questions, and then I'll just feel free to answer.
Okay. So yeah, I think once you've kind of, especially once you've been a little bit removed from school, it's like, come on, my third year of being removed from school, just how did you, there's so many different directions I want to take it in. How did you, I guess my first question is, how do you manage the financial aspect of like, okay, well, you want to advance it. Let's say you already have a job like I was, in the law enforcement type of field, and you can choose to move upwards in that and dedicate yourself to that. But simultaneously, or say, no, I'm going to hold off on that and allocate more of my time and energy to this. And just the financial balance of like, hey, because it's hard, you got to look for scholarships, you got to pay for GREs, you got to pay the rent, you got to pay everything. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So what advice would you give to me and everybody else who's trying to say, okay, because I think that's a big intimidation factor. Is we look at it and we say, oh, the one is the effort, and then two is the money it's going to take to accomplish something like that. And
to
so,
even like just the application process,
yeah, just
right?
to start it.
Gotcha. So, I mean, fortunate enough for me, my parents were a big help in that whole process. So they said, like, we will support you in your undergrad, and then wherever you want to apply, just apply, and then we'll help you out. But once you get in, you're off on your own. I was like, holy crap, like this is gonna suck. But they paid for it, and so I was very fortunate. However, I was working at the time too. So the money that I made, I also was able to pay for it if needed. But luckily, my parents paid for me. Thanks, Mom and Dad.
You're the realist.
Yeah, thank you. You're the realist. You're the real one.
Yeah.
But so what I did is, I don't know, do you work as a personal trainer?
Yeah.
Okay.
So I'll train people on science.
Perfect, yeah. So I just released a video on how to make money in physical therapy school, and one of the biggest things that I really advocated for was personal training. And as you know, it's great money, right? For the amount of hours that you work, it's great money. And a lot of that, when you just train, it's like it could continue to build. It's like it's one of those things where it's not a dead end. Like you can always have more clients and make more money. And so I really recommend, if you were to like just approach this, go one thing at a time. Like make enough money, because you work right now in public safety and also as a trainer, to save money and say, okay, this money is going to go towards applications. Put that away. This money is going to go towards GRE. Put that away. Don't touch it, because it's tempting. I mean, you want to buy clothes, you want to eat out and all that stuff.
Yep.
But, you know, and this is just futuristic thinking. And personally for me, I'm a very futuristic thinker. I think about, in DPT school, you're going to have to think like that too. Like, all right, this, like, it's like delayed gratification, right? Just the concept of that. Like, I want to go out and hang out with my friends, but I have to study now and put that time away, because it's going to invest into something greater. And so same thing with money. It's like, I need to invest in something now and make money and put it away to invest in something greater, like the GRE, because you know that this is just a stepping stone to get into DPT school. Yeah. So save up some money, man.
Yeah.
But fortunately for me, I actually only applied to APU. So I didn't have to spend too much money in the application process on different other programs.
Cool. Yeah, I feel you on that. That's been actually something that in about the last year has helped me a lot. You know, I just think, I call in my head, I say different envelopes. You know what I mean? I'm mailing that money to different things.
Exactly.
Was the process or the application process different at all because you graduated from APU? Do they help you out differently, or is it just kind of like you might as well have gone to like Biola where all they care?
Right. So people say that, if you go to the undergrad place, then they might look at you at an advantage, or it's easier or whatnot. I'm not exactly sure how valid that is. However, because I came here, I said, you know what, I'm going to take advantage of that. And how? Because I kind of need a system. I knew that there were the application process, right? And then as soon as you apply, they check out your GRE, your GPA and all that. And then after that, you get filtered through. Then it's like, all right, I'm going to interview, right? And then at the interview process, and just like getting a job, it's like you got to put up your best front, you got to smile, you got to do all that. You got to make a good impression.
Yeah.
And when they're reviewing all the applications, it's like I was thinking, how can I stand out of all of them? And so that's where I took advantage of coming here, because I visited the department a lot, so I could get my face familiar and tell them my name, and I would introduce, hey, do you remember me, Justin Lee? Hey, do you remember me, Justin Lee? Hi, Justin Lee, da-da-da. So when eventually, and then as passing, I would say, hey, I'm applying this year, da-da-da. So now they know, like, okay, this guy's applying, his name's Justin Lee, and then when I interview him, like, I'm gonna put all those together. And that's how I took advantage of the, I guess, system. Like, not necessarily because I came here that I was more entitled than other people or at an advantage, but I strategized the way the system worked, and then worked around that so that I can be at an advantage, I guess.
Yeah,
that makes sense.
Yeah, maximize the opportunity of having exposure to the professors, and I think, like you said, I think there is something to be said for if you know the territory already. You know the layout of APU in general. I think that's always gonna kind of help us out. So it's just crazy because things are changing so much all the time. I'm like, hey, this wasn't like this, 2 years ago, 3 years ago. But yeah, definitely. Did you feel any, just, I'm sure a lot of people feel this. How did you handle, or what was your self-talk, if there was any intimidation, like, oh man, this is a big road ahead. Like, this is not, undergrad. It's like, oh yeah, you're coming out of high school. You're like, oh, I can go have fun. I can, nobody would make college, party or whatever. Whereas, he's having some memories right now.
Yeah, I know. It's like, oh man, I just start sweating. It's like, I remember those days.
But, once you're out of school and, like, they say that real world, hits, it's a whole different journey now. You're like, okay, I'm legit, like, trying to do something that's going to help my whole family. That, if you don't have a girlfriend or something at that moment, you're trying to foresee for the future. You know what I mean?
Right.
And it can be like I said, committing to 3 years. I've heard some programs run as long as 5 years. What would your advice be to, if you feel intimidated by something that long, and you have to, like I said, juggle all those different things?
Right. It is a huge commitment, right? Like you said, 3, 4, 5 years. I haven't heard of anything 5 years. Most programs I heard were 3. But I mean, even from like undergrad, that's 4 years plus, and then 3 years for your DPT, right? So I mean, you're looking at least like 7, 8, maybe even 9 years total from starting undergrad to graduating DPT school. And some people are fortunate enough to go straight into it and finish up with the shortest amount of time as possible. But that wasn't for me. I mean, I didn't do that. I graduated and I was 23 years old, 24 years old when I graduated undergrad. So I came in a little bit later. Most people, or that's about the average age, but some people are like 21 and they come in. But I came in around that time. And I had to make the decision, like when I was applying or thinking about applying to DPT school, I said, all right, how do I get in? How long will it take to get in? And then how long will the program take? Because as you know, there's prerequisites, there's GRE, there is letters of recommendation, and the essay that you have to write, and the whole application, of course, process. And that takes time. It's not like it just takes a summer. And
you're giving a lot of thought, a lot of energy.
Yeah. And so when I came into APU, I transferred in here. I was 21 at the time, and I finished all my prereqs while catching up to school, because I came in knowing, all right, I'm going to apply to DPT school no matter what, period. And the reason I had this mindset was because I had some prior experience prior to transferring in here from 21 years old. I worked as a EMT, as a wildland firefighter, and then as a personal trainer as well. And people were like, well, why did you leave firefighting? Why'd you leave EMT? Those are great jobs. Like, yeah, that's true. But as soon as I got into personal training, I was like, wow, I really enjoy doing this. And then when I took my first class at APU, and it was with the exercise science major, right? It was like a fire lit up. And I was like, this is what I want to do. So then I said, screw EMT, screw firefighting. I'm going to get into this human body, personal training, this field. And I didn't know if physical therapy is the area that I really wanted to get into. And then so I investigated a little bit more, volunteered. I figured out what is physical therapy like, and you think about preventative exercise, corrective exercise, and things like that. And that is when I was like, wow, this is what I love. Strength and conditioning and all that stuff is cool, but this preventative exercise and physical therapy and helping people just with physical therapy, right, that's what I love. And when I just held on to that passion, time went by so fast.
No, yeah, I am. Well, I'm glad you said that. I had, because so many thoughts trying to come out at the same time.
Yeah.
That's really cool that you, because I was actually considering, I came across Point, about a month and a half ago, where I was like, hey, when I came across your YouTube video. And I was like, okay, am I going to go into firefighting? Because there's a fire department right across the street from where I work, and we interact with them all the time. Or do I want to go down physical therapy? I already knew that I love the field. Is anything with the body. So that same thing. I remember my first class. I don't remember which teacher, because they were all just awesome, you know.
Right.
And they started talking about, something so simple, glucose, and if you're gonna lift like this, and just everything inside the body. I was like, whoa, you know what I mean? Yeah, the physiology of everything is awesome, and I think I think people underestimate how much overlap there is between physical therapy and strength training, or its benefits to everything, to sports. Because what I've realized is, on a very basic level, you can't express any skill or strength unless you're stable, and a lot of that is like, hey, let's get this joint stable, let's get this thing really in place, because your body's gonna say, no, that's shaky, I'm not going there.
You're already thinking like a physical therapist, man.
So I'm glad to hear that.
That's good. That's really good.
So but you have to be stable, and that's foundation for so many things, and for muscles to operate off of, and access and all that stuff. But Yeah, I'm glad you said that because it's cool to see like you had a similar crossroads because you could have firefighting is lucrative. It's you help people,
Right.
and that's an awesome feeling,
Right.
And then so to see that you still said, hey, I want to pursue this doesn't make me feel so crazy, you know what I
Right,
mean?
right. And there's you hear a lot of stories of people going, well, first off, like different majors like business, psychology, or I hear something totally different like art, and then all of a sudden they go into physical therapy, and it's not uncommon for that to happen. But I think if you are looking and you're like, well, is this what I really want to do? You also have to realize like this is a serving profession.
Yeah.
And I mean, it seems like from the past that what you've done, like public health, law enforcement, all that stuff, you're serving the public.
Yeah.
And that's something that I also realized too when I was deciding, is this really what I want to pursue? Well, I said, well, EMT, firefighting, personal training, what do all three of those have in common? Is that they're helping people.
Yeah.
They're serving the community. So I said, well, PT is the same thing. So I said, okay, then at least I know I'm on the right path. Like, it's not self-serving, it's like everyone else serving.
Yeah.
So I think you're on the right path there. And
Thank you.
Like if that encourages you, like,
Oh, yeah, definitely.
I think you're doing good.
Yeah, that feeling. I mean, there's a couple friends at work that I have, and I'll train them, and they'll be like, "Hey, this starts to hurt," and I take something I learned from physical therapy or my own injuries, or I'll look it up. I'll be like, "Hey, physical therapy for this," and to see when I think something that encouraged me a lot too was to see how like they're like that light up when they're like, "Oh, it feels better," or I can move a little more comfort,
Right.
Well, my friends had a knee injury, and then I told him, well, let's get your hamstrings firing. Let's see what happens with that.
Yeah.
And then he's like, dude, I feel so much like I can run again. Like,
Yep.
And then so I was like, oh, okay, that worked. That was my best guess.
You got the mindset, bro.
So thank you, man.
Yeah.
Appreciate it a lot.
Thinking outside the box of just move that thing or rest it, and then you'll be good. It's like, well, why is that happening?
Yeah.
Like you said, like let's get your hamstring firing, because maybe you're firing other muscles and compensating, and not firing the hamstrings, which should be the primary thing that should be firing, right?
Yeah.
So I mean, that's physical therapy.
Yeah. And to me, I'm like, okay, if we can get you to do this, then and I'll probably transition out of there where I'm like, well, then we can get you to squat.
Right. Then we can get you to squat.
And let's load up 500. And he's like, oh. But it's fun. It's just great to see somebody feel better, And I think even from personal training end, you're right. Like, I like seeing somebody feel better about themselves. Like, hey, they see that strength because, I was that little chubby kid who wasn't confident, who wasn't like, didn't, and I didn't like myself. And so you see people see that they have the power to do and feel better about themselves and change those things,
Yeah.
And that's real. It just gives you a lot of satisfaction,
Yeah.
And I can imagine physical therapy when someone is in pain, My brother's had a back injury for a long time since he had surgery at 20 something, and so I saw them. I think that's part of it too. Is I saw a lot of doctors neglect. Oh, he had it since he was 12 years old, and they said, oh, it's not a disc, and he's like, I don't know what a disc is, but this doesn't feel right.
Yeah.
And I look back and I say, hey man, if he'd have just had one person, one physical therapy along the way who said, hey, let's look at this a little differently.
Yeah.
Let's give us a little more attention. You know?
Yes. And that's like the field in physical therapy that we are all trying to go for too, because and there are, I'm not bashing on any PTs or any doctors or anyone in the medical field, but there are veterans. There are and it's a job where you can get complacent. It's just like, oh, I recognize this before, okay, it's gonna fit this pattern and let's move on. But I think PT nowadays, it's really changing that concept. It's like, well, let's recognize patterns, but let's also dive deeper and say every individual is different, and so let's figure out why it hurts for you, right? Like we'll put you and say, okay, you have back pain, but let's figure out why it hurts for you specifically, not just like for everybody. And APU, I don't know about other programs, but APU does a fantastic job at drilling that into you of just like, all right, like every patient is different, and so let's figure out why that is for them. And you're not gonna find an APU grad that's like gonna just treat everyone the same.
No, that's awesome. You're absolutely right. I think you can see a torn hamstring or some kind of injury at the same time, but the mechanism that caused that injury is not going to be 100% the same. You know, one guy, they'll say, you know, people say, oh, I, you know, hurt my whatever running.
Right.
And running to one guy means from a straight line, and another guy means I was cutting and turning.
Right.
All they know is they were running.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
you have to dig in and say, okay, well, that's what, how, you know?
Yes.
And so
and that's also hard as a PT too, because sometimes we can just understand like, oh, like running, or I pick something up, and we just assume that everyone picks something up a certain
same way. Yeah.
And so it's a skill that even I'm learning as I'm developing too, to be like, wait, let me see you pick that up.
Yeah.
Because I mean, I learned from one of my experiences, like just stupid mistake, but you know, they said I was on all fours, and you'd think, oh, hands and knees, but actually it turns out it was like hands and feet and something else, and they were in this weird position. I was like, oh, like I should have just asked them.
Yeah.
You know, so
you're absolutely it's a learning moment, though. You know what I mean? You have to. You don't know what you don't know sometimes. So we're assuming, hey, this guy is tried to deadlift this box, and he's like, no, you tried to pick it up a totally weird way, you know?
Right.
So, you know, somebody who I take tremendous, I mean, there's a lot of people in the strength field that I take a lot of example from, and one of them is Steffi Cohen. I don't know if you heard of her. She's like she's like even like the screensaver on my phone, because she's a DPT, and she's setting world records in powerlifting.
Wow.
So
dude,
yeah, she just got beat,
respect.
but she's still a DPT.
Okay.
So
yeah, dude.
So
Heck
she's really awesome. You know, I'm sure she'll climb back up there.
Yeah.
And she's just she's from Venezuela, and so
okay.
You know, if anyone wants to check her out, her story is really interesting too. How she changed majors like 5 times.
Wow.
So that's where I said, okay, well, I've had uncertainty before. She's had it, and she's like, she's 119 squatting 523, so or 5 something. Yeah, think about that,
dude. That's like 3-4 times her body.
Yeah. So
I can't even do double my weight, dude.
Dude. I'm getting into 500s, and I'm like, uh-oh.
Yeah.
This feeling kind of heavy. I
know.
So but yeah, it's just because that was another thing that I struggled with. Was I still have athletic endeavors. It's just ingrained, you know, from playing football and sports all my life. Mm-hmm. You know, powerlifting is my athletic endeavor. It's what, you know, it makes me excited. It's the best part of my day whenever I get to do it. And sometimes I was like, okay, well, you know, I don't like to let, you know, and even at work, you're like, well, you got to stop lifting, or you got to, you know, not just work, but people in general who don't lift.
Right.
Will say, hey, you know what, you gotta limit your fun, basically. And I'm like, no. That's not how I'm gonna live. This is essential, you know. This is like water. Right. And so, you know, seeing that there are people, even, and like you know, seeing you, because I've seen you so many times. I passed your Instagram too, and I was like, I recognize this dude, you know. Yeah. And I think it was, you know, talk about God first. It was some force was like leading me to you.
That's right, man.
And because you had done a post, and then I was like. You know, and it's great to see people who are fit and in whatever journey that they want to do, you know, athletically or through lifting and exercise,
right.
And still be able to do the DPT thing, you know,
right.
Because that was my fear, is like, oh, I can't do both.
Dude, okay, so can I interrupt you for just a quick second?
Go ahead.
So I think this is something that will speak to you and a lot of other people who are watching this, and what that is that if you're lifting right now and you're getting into DPT, you have such a huge advantage. And I'm gonna say that like again, like a huge advantage, lifting and PT, because you are gonna exercise. Exercise is one of the biggest components for therapy in physical therapy, right? And it's like, and you know, as a trainer, you're not gonna give somebody an exercise that you've never done before, right? And so same thing with PT. You better do all those therapeutic exercises. You better practice them, because you're going to have to show it, and you're going to have to teach them. And the best way to do that is by you doing it yourself and setting an example. Absolutely. And it just means so much more that you're fit, you compete, that you're involved, that this is your athletic endeavor, right? And that when you're a PT, your patients are going to see that. They're going to know your story, and they're like, wow, I respect this guy so much more buy-in. Like, it's just like everything
I can totally see that
about that is like huge. And the reason why, like, one of the other reasons why you have such an advantage is because you understand, like, you can teach someone how to squat in PT. You'll learn, like, in school, like, oh, like, you know, these are the movement faults, these are the things that are tight, weak, but you're not going to get someone back to squatting, and you're not going to really understand because like if you didn't go through it, you don't know what it's like to have 400 pounds on you.
Yeah.
Like how can you possibly relate what 400 pounds is on your body until you put it on your body?
Yeah, absolutely.
Right? And like if someone wants to come in and say, I want to get back to squatting 400 pounds, you're gonna be like, all right,
Yeah.
you can do it. And how much more empowering is that, and what an advantage you have as a PT versus someone else who doesn't and who's less confident. Like, okay, like we'll get you back.
Yeah,
But like
they can't really understand. They can't. Yeah, no, that's absolutely, because there's a lot of people who get injured and they say, okay, well, you know. And I think it even carries over to any endeavor they have. If they're cross country, like, I don't know why you want to run that much, but you know, it doesn't have to make sense to me, because at its core, lifting is just lifting something heavy up and down a bunch of times, and it doesn't really seem like it has that much sense. But you know, you feel great when you do it, and so I think you're absolutely right. And I think even further, like, I try to do bodybuilding movements, you know, just to have that mind-muscle connection. I think that helps you. I can foresee that, you know, getting into this field, is that the cueing of things. Okay, kind of try to contract this or try to squeeze this. And they're like, oh, okay, there it is. Do it again, you know? And so that, I think that's been something for me that has helped me learn to stabilize certain muscles, is that I can feel them. And I feel like a lot of the population, especially like the whole posterior chain, the back, everything. You know, the hamstrings, they can't, they're like, I don't know what that looks like. So they just know, oh, that hurts, and I go, that's your hamstring, and you know, it does this and this, or that's your, you know. So I think that I can see that helping a lot, you know, because you're trying to help them understand. You're trying for two human beings to feel the same sensation within their body when they're two different people. So that's
right.
You know, the
that's
closer
a hard
you can get
bridge
to
to
get. Absolutely. So
dude, like, and you'll notice when you get into DPT school, right? That because you have this fitness background, this exercise background, you're gonna notice that your level of understanding is gonna be just exponentially more than where your classmates are. Because imagine somebody who doesn't know anything. It's like okay.
Yeah,
like,
if you have no prior foundation.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, you're better with words than I am. Exactly. Took the words out of my mouth.
I was reading a dictionary before I got here, bro. I was like, gotta look good.
Yeah, athletic endeavor. I was like, wow.
Yeah. No, it's crazy because I still remember one of my classes here, it was, I think the class was called kinesiology.
Yeah.
And I was like, okay, you know,
my favorite
movement,
class. Yeah. Eric Sorensen.
See, no, I had it with a different professor. I won't throw shade.
Okay.
And there's nothing wrong with the professor.
Yeah,
it was just, they were different. I won't even give that. They were different, and their teaching style didn't necessarily speak to me. So they were talking about axis and gait and all this, and I was like, this is boring. Like, tell me how to bench 500. You know, how do I load some muscle?
Hey, unfortunately though, PT is going to be a lot of that
and
too.
And it's crazy how I still found my way back to that when with injuries or trying to understand the mechanics of lifting better. Now I understand everything she was like. I looked through my notes. I'm like, I understand all this because of YouTube. And, you know, so don't underestimate YouTube and how educational it can be.
It's huge.
You know, and so now I go back to that, and I'm like, I would have understood that class so much more if she'd have said, if you were trying to lift and this is your bicep is or your elbow's the axis and you're trying to, you know. So sometimes you have to go and put, and I think that will be part of it, is you just got to find a way to understand it. But but it, you know, my point with that is just crazy when you think you won't need something and then you're like, oh, I do need this, and two, it is actually fascinating, you know.
Right.
So yeah, you need all that stuff.
You'll learn a lot, man. Like when you get into school, a lot of things, and the sucky part is that not everything clicks with everybody. So like gait, right? Like walking, like some people hate it. That's okay. But in DPT school, you're gonna have to know it, you know, like verbatim. And so it's like,
the
whole phases and all that. But and the same thing applies with other things, like, and that it's something I didn't know about DPT school is that it's a generic entry level physical therapy program, like all of them are, and I'll make a video on this later. But it's like, I didn't know that. I thought when I was going to get into DPT school, I was just going to know like corrective exercise, like rehabbing people in like the orthopedic setting, right? But I didn't know that we would learn so much more in like neurology, pediatrics, cardiopulmonary, like all of that is physical therapy, like cardiac rehab and stuff, you know. And there's the field of that is very, very deep too. And so it's like, I don't want to learn about pediatrics. Like, I know I'm not going to ever work with them, like, but I had to learn it. And it was a hard journey to go through and force myself to learn those things, but it's something that you have to do. And maybe relevant to you now as someone who's trying to get into PT school, taking your prerequisites, chemistry, bio, physics, psychology, all of those. It's like, how is this going to relate to physical therapy? Like, this is so stupid. I was thinking the same thing. Anatomy, physiology, maybe you're like, all right, like I can see this, like I'm gonna need to know this.
That's the one that jumps out.
Right. But like chemistry, you're like, this sucks. But it's like another class, like me in pediatrics, it sucks. But it's something that you're just gonna have to grind through and just get through in order to get through the next step. And sometimes in life, you just have to endure some things, right?
Absolutely.
To move on.
No, absolutely. And I'm glad you said that. I had no idea that you had those different types of, I guess settings underneath, physical therapy. And then that is true. You have to learn, like you said, even cardiopulmonary, you learn how everything comes together all at once. Chemistry too, I'm still trying to get my head on how that one went.
Chemistry, man.
But yeah, it's crazy how even though your breathing pattern can affect,
everything.
So so it's crazy. How do you balance like your lifting? Like, do you just say, okay, I have an hour and then straight to this, or how does that come into play in your schedule?
So something that I'm very, very proud of is that, one, since I was 13 years old, I've never taken more than a week-long break in exercise in my whole entire years, right? Never taken.
That's the key to gains right there, consistency.
Consistency is key. I've never taken longer than a week break. And in DPT school, for almost 3 years now, I've never taken a break off. Not 1 week. Like, I mean, the minimum that I've done in a week was at least 3 times.
Wow. Yeah. That's still good.
Always. And it's just, you're going to have time. You're going to make time. And if you find something important, just like eating, you're going to make time to eat.
Yeah.
Right? So if you find exercise to be important, like it was for me, I'm going to make time to do it. Whether it's waking up early, whether it's in between classes, or after class, or after work. Like, you can fit it in. And even as little as 30 minutes, they're going to have just so many benefits anyway. I mean, you know this.
Yeah.
It doesn't have to be an hour and a half, 2 hours long. Like, that'd be great. I mean, I'd love to live in the gym there, but, I got stuff to do too.
Yeah. Just enough to stimulate.
Just enough to stimulate, yeah. And it's like, and the thing about school is that even in undergrad, you have classes in the morning and an afternoon, right? Or you have like a lunch break, right? So you have an hour. That's a perfect time to go lift.
Yeah.
You're at a university, they have a gym. Go to the gym. Work out during lunch, and then warm up your food and eat that while you're in class on the next one. I mean, professors don't really care.
Yeah.
So, I mean, you're just maximizing your time, and you can still keep the gains going.
Yeah, absolutely. I totally see that. I've been in that situation a couple times where I'm like, okay, I have one exercise right now. This is what I'm doing, and I'm going to drop set it and everything else underneath the sun to every other technique. So, but that's awesome, man. That's awesome. Oh, here's something else I was going to ask. How did you do it for the PT-aide hours and all that?
So I actually just did the minimum, just 200 hours. I don't know if I think PTCAS still allow. I think most programs say 200 minimum, and it could be anywhere. But you have to look in the specific school to see where, because some of them say like we want 100 at inpatient, 100 in outpatient, or 50 in neuro, or whatever. So you have to look specifically at where you want to go. But I would definitely make a spreadsheet and say like these are like what schools and what they want, and then try to maximize your time, because you don't want to spend all your time in ortho and then be like, oh crap, I need to do 50 neuro, all of a sudden. So I would definitely look at that ahead of time before you start looking into where you want to volunteer or aid at. But yeah, I just did the minimum, and I only did it at ortho, and the reason being is because just long story short, I rushed into applying to APU, and I was at this big crossroad where I was like, do I apply? I only have 1 month to kind of hit this deadline, and that means I have to look for my 3 letters of recs. I need to get my GRE and write my letter and submit it to APU. And I was like, should I do this? Should I not? And I took the jump. I prayed about it, and God said, do it. I said, you're crazy, but I'm obedient and I'm going to do it. And so I did. And then I applied, got in.
That must have, how did you feel? Let me ask you that one. Let's get some encouragement. How did you feel when that thing said, I don't know what wording it used, hey, you're in?
It was like, well, it was when Anel, so she's the admission person at APU. She called me and she's like, hey, just want to tell you congratulations. Like, I was on my way to work, and I was driving, and I said, congratulations. I was like I was lost at words,
Yeah.
and then I was like, okay, thank you. And then I hung up the phone, and I'm like, I rolled down the windows. I yelled so hard and loud that my voice, I lost my voice. And I had people at work are like, what happened? And I'm like, I got accepted.
That's awesome, man. I cannot wait for my moment.
Dude, that moment when you get in, it's like, it's so rewarding to be rewarded for all your hard work. Because no doubt about it, the journey to get into school is very hard, very rigorous, no doubt.
Yeah.
Right. And and it gets hard when you get in too, but it's a lot of pressure, and there's a lot of moving parts that you don't even know, you don't have a full grasp on, you don't understand.
Yeah.
And you're like, I don't know what I'm getting into when I'm doing chemistry or physics or trying to apply through this program called PT-cast. How do I navigate through all this? And it's a lot of stress.
Yeah.
But when you do figure it out, and when you do work through it one class at a time, that's my advice, just take it one class at a time. It's super rewarding when you get that call or that letter.
Okay.
Yeah.
Here's a question that would be tough for me. Is there any, or what type of math, if any? Because I can do all the, I don't have an issue. It's just if they're the Pythagorean theorem, I'm like, okay, I better read up.
No.
Okay,
you don't need to
cool.
know that.
So
math, just standard algebra is pretty common. Some person is walking at this miles per hour and did it for 30 minutes. How much distance did they travel? Yeah. And then there's times where I'm like, I have to really sit down, let me write this down.
Yeah.
I can't do the mental math. But simple math like that.
Okay, cool.
But there is also statistics involved,
Mm-hmm.
and APU does research, so you're going to have to do some statistics, which can be seen as math.
Okay.
And maybe other programs might have that as well too.
Yeah, I think it's different because my fear has always been dealing with math, isolated math. Statistics, I understand because I had good undergraduate professors who I can gather that, or if they there's statistics about lifting that I'll probably read in some way, and I'm like, okay, I get that.
Yeah.
So as long as it's just not straight just do this calculation, it's
no. And if in school, if you were to have anything like that, you would already know what the formula is, or you would practice that and you would go through repetitions. But it's not like a math class. It's 0.5% of the whole program.
Okay,
yeah, it's
cool.
nothing to fear or anything.
And how did you prepare for the the GRE?
The GRE, yeah. So this was my thinking. I said, my GPA is great. I worked hard, and I know I've proven myself with my GPA. My hours, I was like, all right, I have the minimum hours, so I'll just hit that. The GREs, I said, okay, I gotta do well or not. I don't know. But I said, as long as I get that interview, I'll be solid. When I get the interview, I know I can wow them. I'm confident that I can stand out the page. I worked hard for this. I just gotta get there. So the GRE is one of those things to get there, right? And so, at least for APU, their filter system is do you meet the minimum requirements, and competitively, are you good enough to get an interview? And so, the thing for me while I was applying at the time, and I'm sure it's way more competitive now, a couple years later, was I just need to hit the minimum requirements. Like that's all I needed to do, because if I prove myself there, then I'm worthy enough in that aspect, and it's not like a minus point for the whole application process.
Mhm.
You know, it's like, okay, he's good enough, he's sufficient enough through this GRE standard test, that let's move him on to, like, let's look at the GPA, or let's look at something else.
Yeah.
So the way I did it in my mentality, and don't think like this, but it's like meet the minimum requirements, because I knew that wasn't my strong suit.
Yeah.
I knew the GPA, and I knew my interview was my strongest points. So I'm going to focus on that.
Yeah.
GRE was just minimum. So what I did to study was, you have the math, writing, and then the reading comprehension, right? Qualitative, whatever that is. I don't know.
Yeah, like a bigger SAT.
Yeah,
thing.
right. So a lot of the reading comprehension stuff, like, I wasn't a good reader, but what I knew is that vocabulary was a big part of it. Like, it just literally puts a word in a sentence and says, what does this mean? Or what does this word mean? Like, it's literally matching vocab, and there's a ton. And the only way to study vocab is to just go through flashcards.
Yeah.
So there's like apps out there, or there's like little packets that you can buy to get flashcards. So I just went through those. I knew I wasn't gonna know all of them, but if
Yeah.
I can get a couple, then
Yeah.
it'll score me a little bit more.
Yeah.
You know, when I took the practice test, my math has already met the minimum, so I didn't have to like really extensively study for that. I think I was a couple points shy of the minimum at 150 or something. So.
It was the same thing, just like
It's like
statistical math?
it's not like 3 plus 3 is what. It's like it's like out of the box thinking of math. It's kind of hard to explain.
Okay.
Yeah.
I can kind of see what you're saying.
Yeah, but what I would highly recommend you do is to take as many practice tests as you can. Because the first practice test I took, I scored super low, because I was like, this sucks. I don't want to sit here for 4 hours, 6 hours and take this test. But guess what? The real GRE exam is 4 to 6 hours, or however long it takes.
Yeah.
And that's a endeavor of its own, right? Like you're not used to sitting for that long and taking an exam. So up here you get exhausted.
Yeah.
And then when you're clicking your answers, you get sloppy.
Yeah.
And so building or understanding that first, like, oh, this is what I'm going to get myself into. The next day I took another practice exam, and I scored like 5 to 7 points higher on every single thing, just because I knew what I was getting myself into, and I knew how long it was going to take.
Yeah.
And there's free stuff out there.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
Yeah. Like, do different programs like Kaplan, Princeton Review, and stuff like that. So.
Awesome. Yeah. Thank you, because I think that would be a big 6 hours. People be like, nope. But I think I try to always remind myself that, hey, this is going to pay off in the long run, because I mean it's a well-paying field, but not only that, it's like, I think the payment is that you get to participate in something and help people in a way that's really unique to you and your personality, and that has been in the making from, like you said, you were 13 years old. Same thing for me. It's like, this has been a journey forming. This has been a thing forming over time, and it's not just, I think to us, it's not just like, okay, this is just my job. It's like, it's fun. So
Yeah.
it makes everything else more worth it. And I try to remember that, that the GRE or the studying, that's how I've been trying to get through. Just the encouragement enough to apply or begin that process is that it's a moment in time. My mentor told me that. He said, this is a moment. Whenever something feels frustrating or overwhelming, it's a moment. It's not the rest of your life.
Yep.
Just deal with that, and then.
Yep. That's literally what I said every day of my DPT career. This is just the moment. Get through this. Next day, this is just the moment. Get through this. Woo! I'm glad that's done.
Yeah. No, I'm glad you said that, though, because.
Oh man.
Yeah, definitely, man. That's how it goes.
Yeah, dude.
So yeah, and I think connecting, using your resources, because there's another guy at Barbell Brigade, and he's in a DPT at USC. So
nice.
That's awesome. And he was like, yeah, if you ever had any questions, he's like, you should just look for people who are in PT. That was another thing, and I was like, and then I came into your stuff literally that same day. I worked out before work and went to work, and and so I think to anybody else out there, take advantage. He puts out great stuff.
Thank you.
That's what got me, with the fire going.
Thank you.
Any resource where if you're in Nebraska or something, use what's around you, and who you know.
Online and YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, all of that.
Yeah, connect with people. People
Great
will answer.
Yeah.
He answered me. I was like, oh, he doesn't remember me, and he didn't really. Maybe he did. I was lucky. The guy with the blue shirt from Kansas.
Yeah, right. I know.
But yeah, people are a lot kinder than you think and willing to share their time, and
Right.
what they know. So
And like the worst you can get is a no,
yeah,
right? Or ignore. Like what
yeah,
how does that impact you?
Yeah.
Like it's not like huge at all.
yeah,
And I think that's, to encourage you throughout this process as well, and other DPT students, the worst you can get is a no, you know. But is that going to stop you? I don't know.
yeah,
That depends on you. If you trip, are you going to pick yourself back up and keep going, or are you going to stay on the ground and let that define who you are?
yeah.
And just really quick story before we end here. My friend applied to DPT school, didn't get in. Then he said, I don't want to do PT. Like, I want to do dentistry. Applied 2 times. Both times, didn't get in. But the third time, he applied and he got in. And so just more of that story is that, one, he changed his whole career. So imagine all the prereqs he had to do all over again, and the whole different GRE. It's like the DAT or whatever. And he didn't let the failures of his life define him, but he let the failures allow him to grow and to become a better person. And I think that speaks volumes to a lot of pre-PT students, because like I failed a couple classes. Like, I know a lot of my classmates failed a couple classes, but they didn't let that stop them.
Yeah.
And they retook it, or they said, all right, I got this F or a C, whatever, but I'm going to keep going. And sometimes that happens, but don't let that define you. Let it make you grow.
Absolutely. And I think I just want to add, like, I remember earlier you were saying you were 23 when you started. And so I was glad you said that, because you can't let a lot of, long story short, went to live in Mexico. We got stranded there because we didn't have enough money to come back. So I came into APU 19 and I turned 20 my freshman year. Yes, I failed kindergarten, but if I can still make it to APU failing kindergarten, not coloring in the lines.
There you go.
Then you can get somewhere. So
then you can fill out an application.
Yeah, you can fill out an application. It's not where you end. It's not that one moment, like we said.
Right.
So
Right.
But yeah. So thank you so much for your time, dude. I really appreciate it.
Hey, I got something for you. Hold on one sec. So I got you a little gift.
Oh, thank you, man.
Just to
appreciate that.
You're I know I'm helping you, but with information and stuff like that. But I also wanted to just say that I support you. This is a way for me to say I support you. And this is my brand, Live for Change. It's a T-shirt.
Oh, dude.
Yeah.
I know what I'm wearing for deadlift
I hope
now.
it fits. Yeah.
Thank you, man. I really, really appreciate that.
Yeah, man. And I just, this is my way to say thank you for being on this show, and for helping me grow in Live for Change, and supporting my whole YouTube journey and all of that. And I want to also be there to support you in your academic journey, your fitness journey, and all of that too. So this is just a way to show you that I'm supportive, and I'm always here, man.
Thank you, man. Yeah. Appreciate it. That means a lot too.
Yeah,
Thank you.
Thank you. All right. So really quick. So G, where can people find you if they want to hear more about you or contact you?
I'm on Instagram, Genaro_James_II, or the second. That's mostly where I'm at, Instagram.
Okay. All right. And this guy's lifting some heavy weight at Barbell Brigade in LA. Humble domination. Humble domination, or dominate humbly.
Yep.
I'll put all his information below. If you have any questions, please get in contact with this guy. Amazing dude, lifts a ton of weight, and he's definitely going to be one of those guys that's going to get into DP school, and if he doesn't the first time, he's not going to give up.
Oh yeah, absolutely. We don't stop.
We don't stop, baby. So thank you guys for tuning in, and hope you learned something.
Have a blessed one.
Have a blessed one. All right, so I hope you guys took something from this interview. Genaro was really picking my brain, and I was very grateful for the opportunity to share back on my experience, and hopefully helped him and you on something that you can do now, that you can do today, to help gain towards or take steps towards DPT school. I hope this video inspired some self-change within you. And once again, this channel is all about lifting others and lifting weights. Change people change people. That's why we live for change, people. Have a great one, you guys.